Buckle up, excellence junkies, because this podcast is definitely for you. Welcome to Rocket Fuel. Do you wish that you could surround yourself with people that love to kick ass just like you? Well, come to my party, baby, and meet some of the brightest stars in the entrepreneurial galaxy, because it is my mission to give these entrepreneurs a platform to declare what they are on this planet to accomplish and to show you why they are rocket fuel. I'm so excited. Oh, guys. Oh, this is so exciting today, because if you're out there, this is not only for entrepreneurs. Anybody, you're in corporate, you're an entrepreneur, you're a leader of some kind, you have this thing inside of you that says there's more that you can do. It literally can be like, I can get on that motorcycle. I know that I want to, but something keeps you from doing it, right? So I'm just throwing out all the things that fear is keeping you from. And today's guest, she is the fearless coach, right? She totally focuses. This is what's so exciting here at Rocket Fuel, right? Because our goal is to introduce you to experts that they dive deep into one particular issue to help you get off of that block and get to your next level. And Bisi MacGregor, I'm sorry, I'm talking about you. You're like you're not even here, right? Bisi MacGregor, she's the founder of FEAR2FREEDOM. You're also the creator of what I love, the Live More, Fear Less methodology. This is beautiful. But Bisi, you focus completely on just helping people overcome fear to achieve their next level. I mean, this is a very specified type of coaching. Tell me, like, how did you get there?
Oh gosh, how did it get into me is the question.
Oh, it called you.
But I love it. I'm super excited to be here, Wanda. Thank you so much for having me. Oh gosh, how did I get here? This fear. It's been a part of my story for a long time. So my background, I spent a little over 2 decades in corporate finance. And, just in the numbers, all of that. I had climbed the corporate ladder and all of that because that's what we were supposed to do.
Yep.
So I did it. And I got to the 20th floor, and I'm overlooking the Hudson River, in New York City and all that stuff. And I thought, there's something off here. I'm behind the screen, and there are people on their jet skis. Like, something's off. So I had this pull, really. Not necessarily about the jet skis, but there was this pull on the inside of me to do something different, to do something more. And I had an inkling about what it was. And it was to develop people, because that's one of the things I did so beautifully in corporate. But I didn't know how, number one. And bigger than all of it, it was, wait, what? You want to leave the 6-figure job, but you want to leave all of this and the view?
Oh,
where are you going to start from? How are you even going to do this? It's better to stay here. So yeah.
Wow. So there are a lot of things that you just said that I just want to point out, because I feel like there are these like amazing nuggets, and I want to make sure I spoon feed them to my Rocketeers, because I'm like, you're not going to miss this, right? So you talked about this feeling that you have, and what's interesting is that a lot of people ignore that feeling. There's something inside of us that tells us that either we're being ungrateful, or we're being childish, or stop dreaming, like this is your, keep adulting and stop being like a kid. Where does that, well, I guess I'm kind of saying, where does that come from? But it's a pretty common thing, right?
It is. It's very common, and it's very real. So I'll take you back 13 years or so, maybe 12 years. New York City, Central Park. I'm walking with my then boyfriend, and we'd been on a roller coaster. It was a roller coaster, but it was our 6th year together or so. And I remember we're walking hand in hand, just waiting for our reservation. We're waiting to get the text, and then we'll just mosey on to the restaurant and whatnot. And he turns around, and I'm like, where are you? And by the time I look back, he's on a knee. He's on one knee.
Oh.
And at this point, obviously, we all know what's happening. My whole body is like that. And he asks me to marry him. Mm-hmm. And my whole body said no. Mm-hmm. I knew my whole body said no. Mm. And then I opened my mouth. And I was like, yes. Yes. And in that moment, I knew that I had betrayed my own self. Mm-hmm. So I know this feeling, sometimes it's loud, it's that loud, and sometimes it's just a sense. It's just a sense. And one of the things that, in retrospect, that made me say yes while my whole body said no is, wait a minute, when are you going to get married?
Isn't this why you were with this person for 6 years? How are you going to be ungrateful? Like, this is what you've been working towards.
Yeah.
Why would you say
that? How are you even going to explain a no? Like, how do you explain that without breaking yourself or them?
Wow. So all those things won.
Yeah. In that moment. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, how do you start tackling that? I mean, I guess you even bringing it up, and actually, you see, I'm going to jump right to what you gave as the audience gift, because my Rocketeers know, and guys, this is just, I just love this piece that Bisi put together. It's called, you see, I'm skipping way earlier than I'm supposed to, but I'm going to refer to it because it's called 3 Simple Steps to Eliminate Self-Doubt and Increase Self-Confidence. But what I love about this piece is that, guys, as soon as you text for this, like, plan time tonight to go through it. There are assessments and questionnaires for you to go through. And so what I realized is what you're helping us with right now is your first step of awareness.
Yes.
Right? Because, okay, we'll get into that. Let me tell you how you can receive it. You guys know that if you're in the US, you can text RF for rocket fuel dash FEAR2FREEDOM, and it's FEAR number 2 freedom, and you're going to text that to 411321 if you're in the US, right? So 411321, the message is RF dash FEAR2FREEDOM, and check it out in the notes. If you're watching the video, you see it right here, right? And you are going to be asked for your email address. Put it in, because you're going to instantly receive these 3 simple steps. This is a beautifully written guide to just start cracking the ice, right? And then if you're outside of the US, you know, I'd never forget you. You can text to the phone number 1-909-741-1321, and either you could text or use WhatsApp. Okay. It's going to be RF-FEAR2 number 2 freedom, all together, no spaces, and get your goodies. All right. So we'll get back to that as well. But you had mentioned the first step is awareness. And so when did you start becoming aware that you were letting yourself down? You were not listening to your soul.
Yeah. And I think I don't think it's one specific thing, one specific time. And I think this is true for many people. We know when when something's kind of off. We can sense it. However, we rationalize, we justify why. And here's one of the things that changed everything for me. Research shows that more than 75% of our decisions are based in fear. More than 75% of our decisions, which means you're always making a choice based on a certain outcome instead of what you actually desire. I desire to say no in that moment, but I'm thinking, what? It's been 6 years. What are your parents going to say? So we end up saying yes to a thing we want to say no to a thing we want to say yes to 75% of the time.
It's almost like you're making the decision based on what you want to avoid versus what you want.
Ding, 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 ding.
Wow. Ding, ding, ding. I need sound effect. Ding, 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 ding.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah. And so I'm going to ask my listener right now, like, let's just pause for a moment and think about just one thing that you did that was driven based on what you were trying to avoid, not what you really desired. So you experienced these things, and what got you to the point of learning how to help others overcome this?
Yeah. So like I said earlier on, this is something that I've known, the development of people, but that fear piece, this piece about just breaking the mold or even unveiling ourselves really came to a head when I say to people, I've had 3 divorces in my life. Yes, I'm 45 years old, 3 divorces. Don't judge me if you're hearing this. They're not all men and they're not all women. One man for sure. And the second was the corporate world. And the third, which is the biggest piece of it, was my old self. The self who settled in a marriage that she knew she should not have gone into, who just climbed the corporate ladder, against what she all wanted for herself. And until I came to that head, did I realize there's something else here for you. There's something else here for you. And what I realized in that is fear is the gateway to your freedom. We always hear about how the other side of the comfort zone is, where, and it's so true, but fear is really the gateway to your freedom, to that more that we want.
Wow.
What stands between where you are right now, where you want to go, that bridge, is fear. And it's your willingness to cross that bridge. And what I also learned in my journey, and even just my teachings, having mentors and all of that, was fear will have you doing one of 3 things, or maybe all 3. It would have you conforming.
Yeah.
Because it says, I don't know, it's too risky for you to be out there speaking with your voice or walking the way you walk, talking the way that you talk. You got to do it the way somebody else does. And we see this with entrepreneurship. We see this in the corporate world all the time. And we blend in.
Yep. Even in performers, I also come from a performance background, and witnessing performers that are so unique, a unique voice, a unique way that they speak or whatever, but then they start conforming because they feel like, okay, that's not the thing. And it's like, no, that's the thing that's going to help you stick out. But it's really, really tough. It's tough to just, what is it? Is it fair to say it's tough to be yourself, be true?
It's scary. It's because we've been conditioned not to. And our fear it literally has only one job, our fear. It's to keep us safe, period. Safe from being misunderstood, not loved, not feeling like we don't belong. If it senses that there's a possibility that you might feel this way, it would go into helping you make that decision. Remember, we said 75% of the time, you're making decisions rooted in fear, as opposed to what you truly want. So it says it's too risky. You have not been yourself for the past 30 something years. How are you going to start now? They're not going to understand. What if they don't love you? What if you lose friends? And it is scary for our souls.
Yeah. Oh, this topic just applies to so many different things. So when you're coaching people, so you help people, either, my understanding is you coach one-on-one, or you have group coaching programs. I think you do master classes and workshops, and
yes, I do.
Go into corporate. So there are so many different types of people that you've interacted with that have this common desire to overcome fear. Is there a most common fear?
Yeah. So it's the fear is wrapped in, I don't know if I could be myself. So it may show up as, I don't know what they're going to think. I don't know if it fails because I'm not good enough for this. As opposed to being out there as is and allowing that to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to conform and contort ourselves to fit into what's acceptable.
And what's interesting, what's acceptable if most people are not being true to themselves?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So you can't even tell, like, if you were true to yourself, you may actually be more acceptable if everybody was just comfortable with just being true to themselves.
Absolutely. Not only would you be accepted, you feel so much better because there's so much energy that it takes to put up a show, to perform. It takes so much energy because you're going against the grain.
Yeah.
You know, so fear will have you conforming in that manner. I remember walking, I took one of my nieces to her orientation for her high school. And I remember us going to her homeroom and a couple of other rooms to meet her teachers. And at one point in the hallway, she paused and she says, there's something. I said, what's going on? She says, nothing. And then we go to the next level. And she says, paused again. I said, what is going on? And she says, everyone looks the same. It looks like everybody is dressed the same way. Everybody is walking the same way. And I was so happy, Wanda, that she got this. I was like, yes, this is it. Individuality is like out the window. The person, the kid as an individual is looked upon as weird and looked upon and taunted, which is why most people don't want to. But that is the only way you stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's wonderful for your niece to have that awareness. That's step one, that awareness early on. And before we started recording the show, we were talking about my daughter being 6, my son being 2, and how early in our lives we start getting dampened.
Yes. Yes.
Like, don't dance so much.
Yes.
Don't be so loud.
Yes.
Don't do this, don't do that. And so, of course, there's behavioral, things, but I think it's important for us to be aware, not only for ourselves, but if you have children or if you're influencing children and maybe your niece, your nephew, or, anybody, like, if we're doing that to ourselves and we're frustrated with where we are at age 45, 50, 65, whatever, right? Imagine what we are then doing to the younger generation. So the awareness goes on so many levels. I mean, Bisi, when you're helping this one person, you probably realize this already, but what I'm thinking about, you're helping this one person, but you're helping their entire sphere, their universe, become more enlightened, because if they feel comfort in that, then they can share it with others. That's super powerful.
Absolutely. This point that you just brought up is why I say, when people ask or they're pondering, should I join your program? What's going on? And they, because people are constantly thinking about what they might lose. What's the return on investment? I said, listen, it's not for the 90 minutes you're with me. It's not even for the 90 days. Even if we work for a year, it's not a year. That's not the return on investment. The return on investment for you is generations to come. Because our children do not learn what we tell them. They learn by what we demonstrate.
Yes.
What we model. The things who we are today is as a result of not only our experiences, but what we were indoctrinated into, what we were subscribed into without our permission. So we're doing the exact same thing. I usually say to people, I truly believe we are all born with everything we need to get to achieve the more, whatever it is. We were all born with it. And think about being in a room that has dimmable lights. So what happens is the adults in our life happen to us. We go through life. We get hurt on the playground or a teacher yells at us. And what happens is the light dims just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. Now you're still in the room, in the presence of your potential and power, but you have no visibility of it. And what most people do is they walk out of the room in search for that. They go be other people. Let me talk like somebody else. Let me join this group. Let me hit the bottle. All kinds of things. And what I do for people is like, you're back in the room and the lights are turned on. Voila. Your potential and power is still here. What do you want?
Right.
Yeah.
And even having somebody ask, right? It's difficult to be alone and, ask that question of yourself and truly be like transparent and authentic. This is one of the things. And in general, I always tell my listeners, like, connecting with some sort of expert, mentor, coach to get you through that, where those situations where you feel mediocre. I call it busting out of mediocrity, right? You're for yourself. It may be excellent for somebody else, but you have that feeling that you talked about. It's just a feeling where you're like, no, this isn't right. I don't know what is right, but when you're not in the right spot. And it's better to connect with somebody else that can help you reflect upon it, can ask you those questions, to connect with other people. And I'm speaking to you, the listener, who is really resonating with this concept of like, damn it, like this fear. I can't have this conversation with myself. You can't depend on your loved ones to have this conversation, I will say, because their fear for you is because they love you. They don't want you to get hurt. So they may often hold you back because their fear is reflected in how they speak with you, right? So that's where somebody external is so important. They're on your side, but there's no history of like, but remember, you used to be this, or everybody knows you as this, or whatever. So I love that you have different ways for people to experience it. Obviously, if you're battling fear, like, not everybody's going to be like all in. Sometimes you kind of have to hit that moment where you're like, this is bullshit. Like, this is really dampening my life on multiple levels. And then you say, yes, I need a coaching program. I need a one-on-one, but go to a masterclass, text, get this awesome value bomb that I call, right? Start the process so that you're not just listening and being inspired by Bisi. You're actually saying, okay, let me do something about it. That's the only way you're going to get out of this stuck place, is just to start educating yourself and doing something about it. So once again, I'm throwing this up on the screen. Text RF for Rocket Fuel, RF dash fear to freedom. So that's FEAR number 2 FREEDOM. All right. You're going to text that to 411321. If you're in the US, provide your email address. You're going to get these 3 simple steps to eliminate self-doubt, increase self-confidence. Honestly, it's more than that. This is like a really great self-reflection. Dedicate a half an hour tonight to just starting this process and filling out these questionnaires. If you're outside of the US, you can text RF-fear number 2 freedom to 1-909-741-1321. So just do that now. I have a question for you before we leave. So I'm preparing for the interview, and my daughter, my 6-year-old Mila, so she says, so what does this lady do? And I said, she helps people overcome their fear. I said, what are you afraid of? And she said, falling. And well, actually, she first said, I think it was riding her bike. I said, why are you afraid of riding your bike? She said, I'm afraid of falling. And I said, well, tell me more about why you're afraid of falling. And she just said, Mommy, can you ask her how I could not be afraid of falling? And
I love it.
and I told her, I was like, okay, I will ask her, but you cannot come in during the interview. I'll tell you what she said later. So what would you say to that? Her fear of falling. She's young. She's 6. So
yes. And it is said, research says that is the only fear that we all have. When we're born into the world. It's really this fear of falling, height.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's something ingrained, because I'm thinking like, what the heck did I do to create this fear, right? I'm already like reflecting back, like, oh, I scarred her. So,
I love it. I mean, I think I think it's such a beautiful conversation to have with her. Like, wow, this awareness, like, the fact that she's in tune with, I'm afraid of this. And then the question is, but do you still want to ride the bike? And let's go ride the bike. Let's take the baby step to ride the bike. And let's see, and she goes through, she realizes I'm not falling, number 1. And number 2, even when I do fall, you're there. I'm there
Yeah.
to take care of you. Like, it's not the end, which is what we're so afraid of. It's, if I step out there, what happens? What if I get eaten by a lion? Well, you will not. I promise you, you will not. Our fear says, no, you cannot ride a bike. So we constrict those dreams that were so big. All of a sudden, we start dreaming with chains. Nope, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down some. And we just play merry-go-round in our comfort zone.
Yeah. It's funny because I said to her, well, what happens when you fall? And she said, well, then I'll get a cut like this. And I was like, well, then you get to put a cool Band-Aid on like what you have. I mean, she had a Toy Story Band-Aid on. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And she was like, that's true. But in thinking about it, you know, I can imagine having a coach like you to help us figure out, well, when the thing that we fear happens, how do we put a Toy Story Band-Aid on it, right? Like, how do we kind of zhuzh it up so that we can celebrate it a little bit more versus take it at its deepest and darkest. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I tend to say to people, and they look at me cross-eyed and say, I've never made a mistake in my life. And they were like, oh, come on, Bisi, get over yourself. And it is really because everything that I've done up until now has been a stepping stone for me to get here. You know, the so-called mistake I made in saying yes to a marriage that I, quote unquote, shouldn't have, got me here where I'm able to help other people. Like, listen, it's not the end. One of the things that I've realized, especially with women, we want to avoid disappointment at any cost. We don't want to disappoint anyone. We don't want to disappoint ourselves. So we do all kinds of things to avoid that wound, that little boo-boo. And at the end of it, we create this disappointing life.
Yeah.
So if we can begin to strengthen our emotional core, if you will, where I'm going to be okay. Yes, I fall. I'm going to heal and I'm going to be stronger for it. Now I know how not to ride this way. Now I know to do it this better. If we can just strengthen that, hold ourselves in those spaces, there's everything. It's endless.
Yeah.
Woo!
This is good stuff. And this is absolutely perfect for our Rocketeers. I know I would say everybody needed to listen to this. So I hope you did. I hope that you enjoyed it, my dear Rocketeers, because I'm having a ball. We could talk for hours. I'm going to throw up the catchword one more time, RF-FEAR2FREEDOM. If you're driving, just pull over. It takes like 2 seconds. Pull over and do it. You know why? Because you're going to intend to do it, and then you're going to get distracted and you're not going to do it. Okay. If you're running, just pull over as well, whatever that's called when you're running and you pull over. Just stop, do it, and you will not regret it. This is great. And Bisi, thank you so much for offering such a wonderful resource. I know that there's also information on how to get a hold of you and to learn more about how you can support folks. So if you want to connect with her, text the catchword, get her information. She's serving up like amazingness, and then continue the conversation with Bisi. I highly, highly recommend it. Bring her into your department at work or whatever. I'm throwing out ideas.
Yes.
Any final words for our Rocketeers that are breathing in, breathing out, saying, whoo, I needed to hear that today.
And I love that. So start with breathing in, breathe out. And really, I'm going to offer you this perspective that fear, one of my mentors says this, fear is an affirmation of your growth. The only time fear rears its head is if you're venturing out of your comfort zone. So when your fear rears its head, get excited. It looks like you're expanding.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day, Bisi. Thank you so much for your time. And you too, my dear Rocketeers. I love you. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, every one of our episodes is boosted by a value-packed keyword called a catchword. Yeah. This allows our audiences to text to receive even more value from our guests. So take advantage of that great value. And if you share your expertise by guesting on podcasts or TV or speaking in front of live or digital audiences, then you're leaving anonymous fans behind. So go get a catchword at catchwords.com, KETCH words.com, and use podcast20 as a promo code for 20% off your setup fee. Look, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Rocket Fuel podcast so you never miss your jolt of rocket fuel. Until next time, adios.